I believe Lucy Connolly was Keir Starmer's political prisoner. And that is the damning indictment by Lucy Connolly herself in her first bombshell interview since her release from prison. What Connolly revealed, in my strong opinion, is that she was a victim of two-tier justice with exceptional thanks to Sir Keir Starmer. Telegraph journalist Alison Pearson has stated on X that Lucy never saw the paperwork which every prisoner gets. She had no idea her plea was 1A, the most serious charge for her lawyer could have opted for. That's the words there of Alison Pearson from The Telegraph. Of course, Lucy was held in prison on remand, not giving her space to consider her situation. Her case was rushed through the court, and even she claims that the legal advice she received stated that she was going to prison regardless of her plea. And she was then denied bail and handed a heavier sentence than some even convicted paedophiles. So what is Keir Starmer's role in all of this? Well, he called for cases to be rushed through the court. He smeared all protesters as far-right thugs. He declared all those arrested would be held on remand. He said all charges will be followed through and there will be convictions.
Condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow.
Yeah, now look at that. It's my opinion that due to the Prime Minister's own words, the courts, the CPS, and in many in the legal system believe that Starmer and the state influenced the judicial process through accusations of far-right racism. Lucy Connolly will now be Keir Starmer's worst nightmare, and there is nowhere he can hide.
Have you had a random call lately from a strange number, maybe trying to sell you something or even scam you? If so, your info could be out there. That's because of data brokers, shady companies that scrape the internet for your personal details and sell them to marketers or even scammers. These days, scammers can even use AI to mimic your friends' voices and trick you into sending money. It's not just annoying. Data brokers often target vulnerable people with high-interest loans or sketchy offers. But there is a solution. Incogni, the sponsor of this video. Incogni contacts data brokers on your behalf and requests your info be deleted from their databases. And because your data can keep popping up, Incogni keeps sending removal requests to make sure it stays gone. They've just launched a new unlimited plan with custom removals. If you find your info on a weird website, just send them the link and their privacy team will work to get it taken down. Getting started is easy. Hit the link in the description, create your account and let Incogni handle the rest. It's risk-free for 30 days and you'll get 60% off an annual plan with the code GBNews. Take back control of your data with Incogni.
Well, I'd like to bring in my panel to talk about this a little bit more, and where else better to start than our in-house lefty and Keir Starmer lovey, Kai Wilshaw. Kai, listen, I think the evidence is pretty clear. Lucy Connolly's interview the other day was damning for the Prime Minister, damning for the government. Why did the Prime Minister feel it was necessary to get involved in our legal system?
I really don't see the connection here, Alex. I think it's bonkers for you to suggest, and quite insulting for political prisoners, actual political prisoners across the world, for you to suggest that this is in any way comparable. And in any case, there's 1.1 million convictions in this country, right? And we're focusing on social media crimes that only account for about 44 of those convictions. So really, this has been...
But that's like saying there's only a few murders here and there, but we'll tolerate those murders because the most of them are just crimes of theft. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely bonkers.
No. But what we're really getting at, what we actually have in this country is a completely broken justice system.
We do.
It's not two-tier justice like you claim. And you claim it very well by cherry-picking cases that do, on the face of it...
Prime Minister's own words, Kai.
On the face of it, look ridiculous. But obviously she's been hard done by, Lucy Connolly. But to extrapolate that out and make this an endemic problem is actually quite ridiculous.
Well, I'll come on to you, because I think it's absolutely tragic that anybody's locked up for free speech, by the way. I think every single person should be terrified that you can be locked up for a tweet.
absolutely terrified, and people were and are, and that was the whole point of Lucy Connolly going to prison so quickly, because he wanted people, this is Starmer, he said it, that there will be swift justice, jail sentences, and it was dished out. But just to go to your data, because I know you love it,
I do.
417 people were charged in the days after Southport with offences
right.
during. 369 of them went to jail immediately. Now, you're talking on the one hand of our broken justice system where we don't have any places, but actually we did suddenly have loads of places for people who had tweeted, who had said something about, or who'd thrown a flag at a policeman, Kai. This is a land where we are supposed to have freedom of expression. We don't, and Lucy was a political prisoner of that.
No, that is bonkers, really. And it is so convenient that you pick the cases where, you know, Lucy Connolly, she's quite a sympathetic victim, I agree. I think she did regret what she did.
What about the
but
man
then
who killed
you're not
himself
talking
in
about
prison?
Not talking about those people who had offensive weapons in their flat, who reposted screenshots of the offensive and vile things that they said. That's exactly the kind of people who were locked up exactly the same time as Lucy Connolly. And
OK,
as
all right, I want to bring in Lauren. Lauren, what do you make of this situation with Lucy Connolly?
I think that there is a problem with two-tier justice in this country, but I don't believe it's the one that you think that there is.
Okay.
I think it's an access to legal advice issue. My understanding is that Lucy Connolly confessed guilt in advance of taking legal advice, after which any defence is incredibly difficult, whether or not it's in front of a judge at a plea bargain or whether or not it's in front of a jury trial. And it's entirely possible that the legal advice that flowed from that wasn't brilliant, but put her in front of a judge rather than in front of a jury of her peers who may well have found her also equally guilty of what she was charged with, which was inciting racial hatred. Now, there are very clear tariffs for inciting racial hatred. Had she been charged with something else, the tariffs would have been very different. But I also think, and I know that Renee disagrees with me, there is more space in the women's prison estate than there is in the men's, which is why you will see, I think, convicted paedophiles out on licence when this woman was able to be put in prison because there was a space for her.
OK. Renee, do you want to come back on that quickly? Then I'll bring in Chris.
Well, yes, because most of those people jailed were actually men, so that's why that doesn't stack up. I agree with you about the judiciary. But let's just talk about one other case. Peter Lynch, Grandad. Do you know why he was jailed?
Go on.
Holding a placard up.
Yeah, and exactly my point. You're cherry-picking cases.
What did the placard
to suit
say?
Your own
The
agenda,
placard
Renee.
said that the media was corrupt, something to that offence.
The media was corrupt.
Yeah, there you go.
And then he ended up hanging himself, which is...
In prison.
Terrible.
Which is, it's a horrible...
Well, let me bring you in.
case, but...
Chris, do you think anyone should be locked up for free speech crimes in Britain in 2025? Or do you think there's a red line somewhere we need to draw?
I just look at Ricky Jones and what he said. He had a megaphone and he was saying in front of thousands and thousands of people to slit throats. You know what I mean? And he got away with it.
Well, a jury of his peers said that he was not guilty. A judge, after she had confessed, said that Lucy Connolly was after she had agreed to a guilty plea. That's two very different approaches to justice.
Can I say, because I think that highlights the problem I've got here, is that this whole situation was rushed. It was rushed.
Yeah,
Lucy Connolly was rushed, and it was only because the Prime Minister stood up on that podium and said, we're going to rush this, we're going to rush through these cases, we're going to call out this far-right thuggery, there'll be arrests, and then there'll be convictions, and you will not like it. Pretty much almost what he said word for word there. If the Prime Minister gets involved and says, I'm going to make a political statement, it's about the justice system and how I'm going to now make it faster and quicker and harder and tougher on people who are getting involved in this protest here, then surely...
Then I'd like Starmer to try and, make this story go away, and I'd like him to do a little experiment.
Go on.
I'd like him to stand up on Monday and say that everybody up for a sex crime has to have had it been dealt with by Christmas.
There you go.
And we'll see if his intervention has any bearing on the speed at which those cases, famously slow cases, famously hard to adjudicate,
But it's very different.
if they... How is it different?
It's very different. The country was in a febrile state. There were riots on the television.
You don't think that there's a crisis of crimes against women in this country?
Of course I do, but not to the point where it's on the news every time.
It should be. Crimes against women in this country should be on the news
But
every single
normally
night, and they are not.
So the situation with Starmer standing up and saying that is entirely...
Well, that's why I'm saying it should be an experiment. He should stand up on Monday and see if it has the same impact. It does not.
It doesn't.
Of course
Exactly.
it doesn't.
Because we have a separation of the judiciary and the political systems in this country. Of course we do.
But also, I would argue that there's a clear political divide on this, right? With the women's issue, I genuinely tend to believe most good people are aligned.
Yeah.
Although I do think the case that we're talking about here, which for the following up of the riots, became very political, and that the Prime Minister coming out and saying these are far-right thugs was political in itself. He then, in my opinion, influenced the legal system where, to the extent where legal advice to the CPS, the judges and everyone's going, Prime Minister saying we need to lock people up, we need to convict, let's crack on with it, doing it faster, quicker and harder.
I think we're overlooking the fact that it's entirely possible, in fact, it's plausible that a jury of her peers would also have found her guilty.
I think you might be right on that, and we will never know, unfortunately.
We'll never know, but I would say that they would not have convicted her. And there is an elephant in the room here that nobody's addressing, which is crimes against women are not viewed as politically important as the Muslim vote.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. Chris, when it comes to Lucy Connolly, do you think she's going to sort of be this free speech champion now she's released from prison and she's able to go and speak to anyone she likes?
Well, she's already done an interview, hasn't she, with...
Yeah.
The Mail did it, I think.
I think
Telegraph with Alison Pearson and Dan Wilson's show as well.
She's going to get offers left, right and centre, isn't she?
She's talking to Trump's administration.
Well, I think there was a little bit of confusion as to whether that was
Is it
real
Dan
or not.
Wooten?
Yeah,
She's done an interview with.
That's correct.
She's
That's
done
correct.
it, and
I'm not sure whether she is going to speak to the Trump administration, but do you think, Chris, like when it comes to America, because America has been taking quite a keen interest in free speech, I don't know whether she is meeting the Trump administration. There's been some confusion about whether that's actually taking place. But do you think someone like Lucy Connolly will have an international impact? Because she's quite an ordinary person, isn't she?
yeah, of course, because Keir Starmer sat in the White House and told them that we have free speech and we don't have censorship and stuff. And what she did, she obviously tweeted and she got locked up for 31 months.
Do you know what?
I think Keir gaslights the British public massively, and he was very, very quick to the far-right thugs, the far-right racist and stuff. And if you look at what actually happened at Southport, then people are just absolutely frightened and worried. You know, they're children.
Yeah.
I've got young girls myself. You know what I mean? I would probably do the same, not to a degree of what these... but I find it absolutely mental how he just comes out, far-right, you're racist, did it? He puts everyone in one basket. And I hope she wipes the floor with them, to be honest.
Yeah, and listen, I know she's regretted saying what she said, and she's come out and said, I don't condone violence, and nobody should condone violence. Nobody wants... I don't think she's even said, I didn't mean to incite any hatred at all. She was just having a moment, she thinks she described it as a red mist that falls over her, which I think is perfectly human. Just the difference is in 2025, this is where the law is just not fit for purpose anymore, Public Communications Act, somewhere along those lines, is that it isn't fit for purpose, and therefore people put words up on the internet and they never go away anymore.
Yeah.
This is why I find the Free Speech Union to be so interesting, because we do have a protection for freedom of expression in this country. We have Article 8 under the ECHR converted into the Human Rights Act in 1998, and the Free Speech Union has a much better understanding of how to protect on issues of free speech. So, you know, I think, you know, there's a lot of lefties who come on when there's a protest, it's like, don't talk to the police, don't say anything. I think our side of the argument also has to say, if you're arrested at a protest, don't say anything.
Well,
Find a lawyer.
I'll fight for it. I don't believe Ricky Jones should have gone to prison either. I don't believe that should have ever happened. I want everyone to have freedom of speech in this country, no matter how vile I might find it.
Even saying, like...
What he said, yes.
Well, the thing is, I couldn't get my head around it. He had a megaphone, so he wanted his voice to be heard. But if I went into Manchester Town Centre tomorrow with a megaphone and I got a crowd and I started saying, right, slit the throats of these people, I would be locked up. I'd get thrown in prison.
Well, listen, I don't think you should. I think the way the Americans do this, Chris, is that they judge incitement to violence based on whether or not someone actually acts on whether or not your words have... And I think that is the correct way to do it. I'm not saying it's right, but I think, for me, that's where I would land it. Final word to you on this, Kai. How would you like it if let's say, a Farage government comes out tomorrow, there's been rioting, and says, oh, these far-left thugs, and starts locking up people that are disagreeing with him on the internet? Would you be unhappy about that? Would you call him a dictator? Do you think you'd say it was two-tier justice then?
You can't make up your mind, can you? Either it's indecisive,
I'm asking you.
or he's a statesman. He was being decisive, he was wanting what the country needed, and you don't like it.
OK, well, we'll leave it there, shall we? A Northamptonshire police spokesperson said this. We are aware of comments made by Lucy Connolly in an interview following her release from prison. We hope to contact Mrs Connolly in the coming days to understand the issues she has raised around Northamptonshire police.